The grand hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with voices. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds sat in rising rows of seats. At the center stood High Elder Vox, his blue skin wrinkled with age, his four eyes blinking slowly as he waited for silence. "I come before you today with a warning," Vox said, his voice stronger than his old body suggested. "A new species has begun to reach for the stars. They call themselves humans." A ripple of laughter spread through the chamber. Grand Counselor Mira, tall and elegant with silvery skin that caught the light, stepped forward. "High Elder," she said, her voice sweet but her eyes cold. "We respect your wisdom, but surely this is not worth our time. These humans have barely left their own moon. Their ships are primitive, their weapons are basic. Why should the Council fear them?" Vox did not answer right away. Instead, he touched a control on his wrist. Above the central platform, a display appeared. It showed a blue-green planet, the third from a yellow star. "Observe," he said. 100 of their years ago, they traveled by horse and sail. 50 years ago, they split the atom. 20 years ago, they created worldwide information networks. Today, they have permanent bases on their moon and are planning missions to their neighboring planet. "Many species advance quickly," said Counselor Drav, his thick arms crossed over his chest. "What makes these humans special?" "It is not just their speed," Vox replied. "It is their nature. Humans adapt faster than any species we have encountered. They thrive on challenge. They turn setbacks into advantages." He touched his wrist again. The display showed human history, their wars, their disasters, their triumphs. "Most importantly," Vox continued, "humans never give up. When they cannot go around an obstacle, they go through it. When they fall, they get back up stronger." "Grandy." Counselor Mira laughed, and many joined her. "High Elder, with respect, they sound like children playing at being warriors. Their planet is still divided into nations that fight each other. How can they possibly threaten us?" Vox's ancient eyes narrowed. "I did not say they threaten us today. I said we should be cautious. The last species with such adaptability was the Krevan, and we all remember what happened to them." A hush fell over the room. The Krevan were not spoken of in polite company. Their empire had risen quickly and fallen even faster after challenging the Council's authority 3 centuries ago. "That was different," Mira said quickly. "The Krevan were aggressive by nature. From what we have observed, humans value peace." "Humans value survival," Vox corrected. "They will be peaceful if peace helps them survive. They will be warriors if war helps them survive. That is what makes them dangerous. They are whatever they need to be." The council members shifted uncomfortably. Vox could see he was losing them. They were too comfortable in their power, too certain of their superiority. "I ask only that we establish clear boundaries," Vox said. "Make contact now, while we can still impress them with our strength. Set rules before they learn there are no rules." "We will consider your advice, High Elder," Mira said, in a tone that meant they would do no such thing. "The Council thanks you for your wisdom." Vox bowed his head and stepped away from the platform. As he shuffled toward the exit, his assistant Toll hurried to his side. "They will not listen," Toll whispered. "They never do," Vox replied. "But we have done our duty. Now we prepare." Captain James Reed stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Pioneer, staring at the vast emptiness of space through the main view screen. At 45, Reed was considered young for a captain, but his sharp mind and cool head had earned him command of humanity's most advanced ship. "Anything on sensors, Dr. Lane?" he asked. Dr. Anna Lane, the ship's science officer, shook her head. Her fingers moved quickly over her console. "Nothing yet, Captain, just more empty space." Reed nodded. The Pioneer had been traveling beyond the edge of charted space for 3 weeks. Their mission was simple: go farther than any human had gone before, and see what was out there. "Keep looking," Reed said. "There's something out here. I can feel it." Commander Mike Foster, Reed's second in command, looked up from his station. "Feeling things now, Captain? That's not like you." Reed smiled. "Call it instinct, Mike. 20 years in space teaches you to trust your gut." "Your gut better be right," Foster said. Earth control is getting impatient. They want results, not more reports of empty space. They'll get their results, Reed promised, one way or another. The bridge fell silent as everyone returned to their work. Reed sat in his command chair, thinking. Humanity had been reaching for the stars for decades, but progress had been slow. The vast distances between solar systems made exploration difficult. The Pioneer was equipped with the newest drive system, allowing it to travel faster than any previous ship. But even so, the journey had been long. Captain, Lane's voice broke the silence. I'm picking up something on long-range sensors. It's not natural. Reed was on his feet instantly. On screen. The view screen changed to show a small object floating in space. It was clearly artificial, a metallic structure with extending panels that might be solar collectors. What is it? Foster asked, stepping closer to the screen. Unknown, Lane replied. But it's definitely not one of ours. The design is nothing like our technology. Reed felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying it's alien? Lane looked up, her eyes wide with excitement. Yes, Captain. I believe we've just found proof that we're not alone. The bridge erupted in excited chatter. Reed raised a hand for silence. Distance to the object? About 6 hours at our current speed, Lane said. Reed nodded. Set course, Commander. Let's go say hello. 6 hours later, the Pioneer drifted alongside the alien structure. Up close, it was about the size of a small house, with a central hub and radiating arms that supported what were definitely energy collection panels. No signs of life, Lane reported. It appears to be an automated station of some kind. Possibly, for monitoring or communication. Reed studied the alien technology through the view screen. Can we bring it aboard for study? Lane hesitated. I'm not sure that's wise, Captain. We don't know what it does or who put it here. Exactly why we need to study it, Reed replied. This is what we came for, Doctor. First contact with alien technology. This could change everything. Foster looked worried. Captain, maybe we should report back first, get instructions. Reed shook his head. By the time we get instructions, we could have learned twice as much on our own. Besides, it's just a machine. After careful maneuvering, the Pioneer's crew managed to secure the alien station in their cargo bay. A team of scientists, including Dr. Lane, suited up to examine it. Be careful, Reed warned them. No unnecessary risks. Understood, Captain, Lane replied, her voice tinged with excitement despite her earlier caution. Reed watched from an observation window as the team approached the alien technology. This was the moment every explorer dreamed of. First contact with evidence of alien intelligence. What do you think, Mike? Reed asked his second-in-command. Who built this thing and why? Leave it out here in the middle of nowhere? Foster shrugged. Maybe it's a boundary marker or a traffic light. Stop here, don't go further. Reed smiled. If that's what it is, they didn't make it very obvious. Maybe they didn't expect us to get this far this fast, Foster suggested. Before Reed could respond, Lane's voice came over the comm. Captain, you need to see this. We've found what looks like a control panel and it's responding to our presence. Reed and Foster exchanged glances. On my way, Reed said, heading for the cargo bay. Whatever happened next would change human history forever. What Reed couldn't know was that the moment his scientists activated the alien device, a signal spread across the stars, a signal that would eventually reach the Galactic Council. And by then, it would be too late to heed Elder Fox's warning. Administrator Ben paced nervously in his office on Trell 9, a small mining outpost at the edge of Council space. The station hung in orbit around a barren planet rich in rare minerals. Outside his window, transport ships came and went, carrying workers and supplies. You should report this to the Council, said Leah, his assistant. Her green skin looked pale under the office lights. Strange signals are always reported. That's the rule. Ben ran a hand through his short gray hair. Rules, rules, always rules. With you, Leah. Rules keep us safe, she replied. Ben stopped pacing and looked at the data screen on his wall. It showed a signal pattern unlike anything he had seen before. 3 days ago, the station's sensors had picked it up. A repeating message coming from the direction of uncharted space. What if it's something important? Ben asked. If I report it, the council will take over. They'll send some official who knows nothing about frontier space. They'll make us wait months for answers. And if you don't report it? Leah asked, crossing her arms. Ben smiled. Then we investigate ourselves. We take my personal ship, follow the signal, and see what's out there. If it's nothing, no harm done. If it's something interesting... He shrugged. Maybe we get a promotion. Leah's eyes widened. Or maybe we get fired. Or worse. Live a little, Leah. 20 years on this rock, following every little rule. Don't you want some excitement? Before Leah could answer, the office door slid open. Trell, the station's security chief, rushed in. Administrator, he said, his voice urgent. Long-range sensors have detected an approaching vessel. It's not one of ours. Ben felt his heart race. The signal source? Most likely, Trell replied. It will reach us in about 6 hours. Ben straightened his uniform. Prepare a welcome party, and Trell, keep this quiet for now. Trell nodded and left. Leah stared at Ben in disbelief. You're going to meet them without council approval? I'm going to welcome visitors to my station, Ben corrected. That's within my authority. Leah shook her head but said nothing more. Ben turned back to the window, watching the stars. After years of routine, something new was finally happening. Captain Reed adjusted his uniform as the Pioneer approached the alien station. Through the view screen, he could see it was much larger than the monitoring device they had found. This was a full settlement, with ships coming and going. Life signs? Reed asked. Multiple species, Lane replied from her science station. Hundreds of individuals. The station has artificial gravity and atmosphere compatible with our needs. Reed nodded. They've sent us docking instructions. Seems they're expecting us. How? Is that possible? Foster asked. We've never made contact before. The monitoring station, Lane suggested. When we activated it, it must have sent a signal. Reed considered this. So they know we're coming, but we know nothing about them. Not the best way to start, but we'll manage. He touched a control on his chair. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to make first contact with an alien civilization. This is what we trained for. Stay calm, follow protocols, and remember, we represent all of humanity. As the Pioneer docked with the alien station, Reed assembled a small team in the airlock. Himself, Dr. Lane for scientific analysis, Commander Foster for security, and Dr. Miller, the ship's chief medical officer. Universal translators active? Reed asked. Lane nodded, checking the small device at her collar. They're designed to analyze language patterns and attempt translation, but they need something to work with first. Then let's give them something, Reed said as the airlock opened. On the other side stood 3 figures. The one in front appeared to be the leader, humanoid but clearly alien, with gray skin and large oval eyes. Behind him stood a female with green skin and a security officer of a different species, taller and more muscular. Reed stepped forward, hands open in a universal gesture of peace. I am Captain James Reed of the Earthship Pioneer. We come in peace and friendship. The gray-skinned alien tilted his head, listening. After a moment, he spoke words Reed couldn't understand. The translator at Reed's collar hummed, processing the sounds. Welcome to Trell 9, came the translation, slightly delayed. I am Administrator Ben. This is my assistant Leah, and our security chief Trell. Reed felt a wave of relief. The translators were working. Thank you for your welcome, Administrator. We are explorers from a planet called Earth. Ben nodded. We have much to discuss, Captain Reed. Please, follow me. As they walked through the station, Reed and his team tried not to stare at the various alien species they passed. Some looked almost human, while others were wildly different. Floating creatures, beings with multiple limbs, entities that seemed made of light. Ben led them to a conference room with a large oval table. As they sat, Screens on the walls lit up, showing images of space. "You activated one of our monitoring beacons," Ben said. "It wasn't a question." Reed nodded. "We found it drifting in what we thought was empty space. We meant no harm." "No harm was done," Ben assured him. "But you should know that you have entered Council space. The beacon marks the boundary." "Council space?" Lane asked. "The Galactic Council," Leah explained, speaking for the first time. 300 species, thousands of worlds, united under common law and protection. Reed exchanged glances with his team. Humanity was not alone, but they were very late to a very large party. "We had no way of knowing," Reed said. "We're new to interstellar travel." Ben waved a hand dismissively. "Of course. No offense was taken. But now we must decide what happens next. Officially, I should report this encounter immediately." "Officially?" Foster asked, catching the nuance. Ben smiled. "I've been administrator of this outpost for 20 years, Commander. Out here, far from the Council's central worlds, we learn to be flexible with certain protocols." Leah frowned, but remained silent. "What are you suggesting?" Reed asked. "An unofficial exchange," Ben replied. "You share your technology and knowledge. With us, we share ours with you. We learn about each other before the Council becomes involved and things get complicated." "Complicated how?" Lane asked. Ben hesitated. "The Council has procedures for contact with new species. They can be extensive. Years of evaluation before full diplomatic relations are established." Reed considered this. "And if we agree to this unofficial exchange?" "Then we both benefit," Ben said. "You gain access to knowledge about the galaxy and its peoples. We gain understanding of your unique approach to technology." "Unique?" Miller asked, the doctor finally joining the conversation. Ben nodded. "The modifications you made to our beacon, they were quite impressive. You solved problems our engineers have struggled with for years, and you did it with what appears to be relatively primitive tools." Reed felt a surge of pride. Humanity might be new to the galactic community, but they weren't without their strengths. "I believe we can arrange something," Reed said. "A limited exchange of non-sensitive information and technology." "Excellent," Ben said, clasping his hands together. "We'll begin immediately." On the Council homeworld, Elder Vox stood in Grand Counselor Mira's private chamber. The room was opulent, with high ceilings and artwork from 100 worlds. "A beacon has been activated in Sector 47, Vox said without preamble. "The humans have reached our border." Mira looked up from her desk, annoyance flashing across her face. "One beacon among thousands, Elder. Hardly a crisis." "The signal was modified," Vox continued. "The humans didn't just activate it, they improved it. The transmission range has increased tenfold." "Impressive," Mira admitted. "But still, not a concern. The Centennial Gathering begins in 3 months. I don't have time for primitive newcomers." "You should make time," Vox warned. "The beacon is near Trell 9. Administrator Ben has a reputation for independence." Mira laughed. "Ben? That old fool has been buried on that mining station for decades. Even if he makes contact with these humans, what could possibly come of it?" Fox's 4 eyes blinked slowly. "That is what worries me, Counselor. We don't know. And in my experience, the unknown is rarely benign." Mira rose from her desk, her patience clearly at an end. "Thank you for your concern, Elder. I will have someone look into it. Eventually." As Vox left the chamber, he felt a deep unease. The wheels were already in motion, and no one was watching closely enough to see where they were turning. Deep in space, beyond the knowledge of humans or the Council, the modified beacon's signal continued to spread, reaching farther than anyone had intended. And in the darkness between stars, something ancient stirred, awakening from a long slumber. 6 months passed. What began as a simple meeting between Captain Reed and Administrator Ben had grown into something much larger. 17 worlds in the outer territories now traded openly with humans. Human ships, once rare visitors, were now a common sight at frontier stations. Reed, now Admiral Reed, sat in his new office on Trell 9. The station had become an unofficial embassy for Earth, a place where humans and aliens could meet freely without council oversight. "The latest reports, Admiral," said Commander Foster, placing a tablet on Reed's desk. Reed picked it up and scrolled through the information. "Trade is up another 30%. Human entertainment broadcasts are now reaching 23 council worlds and..." He paused, eyebrows rising. "Is this correct? The Volari have adopted Earth music into their religious ceremonies?" Foster nodded. "Apparently they find our classical music spiritually transcendent. Bach and Mozart are particularly popular." Reed leaned back in his chair. "6 months ago, we didn't know aliens existed. Now they're praying to the sound of our music." He shook his head in wonder. "What's the Council's response to all this?" "Still minimal," Foster replied. "They're treating us like a temporary distraction, something that will lose its novelty." "That's good," Reed said. "It gives us more time." "Time for what exactly?" Foster asked, his expression concerned. "The Earth government is thrilled with the trade agreements, but some officials are worried we're moving too fast." Reed stood and walked to the window. From here he could see ships coming and going, human vessels alongside alien craft of various designs. "Humanity spent centuries looking at the stars, wondering if we were alone," Reed said quietly. "Now we know we're not. But we've also learned something else, that the galaxy is more dangerous than we imagined." He turned to face Foster. "The information Ben shared with us about the Council, about their history, they're stagnant, Mike. 300 species all following the same rules, using the same technologies, thinking the same thoughts. They haven't had a major technological breakthrough in over a century." "And we have?" Foster asked. "We've had 3 just from studying that monitoring beacon," Reed replied. "Our engineers look at alien tech and immediately see a dozen ways to improve it, not because we're smarter, but because we think differently. We're not bound by their traditions, their ways of doing things." Foster frowned. "So what's our goal here? What are we working toward?" Reed's expression grew serious. "Survival. The Council might see us as a curiosity now, but that won't last. Sooner or later, they'll see us as a threat. We need to be ready when that happens." On the planet Volari, young Trin sat in his room, eyes fixed on the screen in front of him. On it, a human story played, something called a movie, about a small group fighting against impossible odds and somehow winning. "Trin, dinner is ready," his mother called from downstairs. "Coming," he replied, but didn't move. The movie was reaching its climax, the heroes making their final stand. His door opened, and his father stepped in. "Watching human broadcasts again?" he asked, his tone disapproving. Trin nodded without looking away from the screen. "They're amazing, Father. The humans think so differently from us." His father sighed. "The Council has warned about these broadcasts. They call them cultural contamination." Now Trin did look away, his eyes flashing with rare defiance. "The Council is afraid of new ideas. The humans aren't afraid of anything." "That's what makes them dangerous," his father said. Trin turned back to the screen where the human heroes were celebrating their unlikely victory. "No," he said quietly. "That's what makes them right." In the grand hall of the Council homeworld, the Centennial Gathering was underway. Representatives from all 300 member species had assembled to showcase their achievements and plan for the future. Grand Counselor Mira stood on the central platform, addressing the assembly. "For 1,000 years, the Council has maintained peace and prosperity throughout our space," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "Today we reaffirm our commitment to the principles that have guided us: unity, stability, and the gradual controlled advancement of all member species." Elder Vox sat in his designated place, watching with ancient eyes. Beside him, other elders shifted uncomfortably. They alone seemed to sense what was coming. "Before we begin the traditional presentations," Mira continued, "there is one matter we must address." She paused, and a hush fell over the assembly. Many of you have heard rumors about a new species encountered in the outer territories. These humans have captured the imagination of some of our more impressionable members. Vox closed his eyes briefly. Here it came. While we welcome cultural exchange and peaceful contact, Mira said, we must also protect our way of life. The rapid spread of human influence, unchecked and unregulated, poses a potential disruption to our carefully balanced society. Murmurs spread through the hall. Vox could see the representatives from worlds that had benefited from human trade looking concerned. Therefore, Mira continued, the Council proposes a containment policy. A quarantine zone will be established around human-controlled space. Trade and communication will be limited and monitored. This temporary measure will remain in effect until a proper assessment of human civilization can be completed. The representative from Valeri stood. With respect, Grand Counselor, my people have found great value in human cultural exchanges. Their art forms have enriched our spiritual practices. That is precisely the concern, Mira replied smoothly. Uncontrolled influence leading to cultural shifts without proper oversight. Another representative stood, this one from a mining world. Human technology has increased our production by 40%. Their methods are unconventional but effective. Effective, yes, Mira acknowledged. But have you considered the long-term consequences? Their approach to resource extraction differs greatly from our sustainable models. What might seem beneficial now could prove destructive in the future. One by one, Mira addressed the concerns raised by various representatives. Her arguments were reasonable, her manner calm and authoritative. To most in the chamber, she appeared to be the voice of wise caution, but Vox saw through it. This wasn't about protection. It was about control. The Council feared what it couldn't predict, and humans were nothing if not unpredictable. Finally, Vox rose to his feet. The chamber fell silent. An elder rarely spoke at such gatherings unless the matter was grave. I warned of the humans 6 months ago, Vox said, his voice showing none of the weariness he felt. I suggested we establish clear boundaries then when we held all the advantages. That opportunity is past. Mira's smile tightened. Then you support the containment policy, Elder Vox? I support wisdom, Vox replied. And wisdom tells me that trying to contain the humans now will only provoke them. They are curious by nature. Tell them they cannot go somewhere, and they will immediately try to go there. What would you suggest instead? Mira asked, a hint of mockery in her tone. Engagement, Vox said simply. Full diplomatic relations? Bring them into the Council as observers first, then members. Guide them rather than restrict them. Laughter rippled through the chamber. The thought of bringing such a primitive species into the Council seemed absurd to most. The Elder's concern is noted, Mira said, dismissing Vox's suggestion without a second thought. Now let us vote on the containment policy. The vote was overwhelmingly in favor. Only the representatives from worlds already deeply involved with humans stood opposed. The Council had spoken. Humans would be contained, their influence limited, their expansion halted. 3 days later, at the edge of what was now officially designated Quarantine Zone Alpha, 3 Council battlecruisers moved into position. Their mission was simple: establish the first blockade point and begin enforcing the new containment policy. Contact approaching, reported the sensor officer on the lead cruiser. 2 vessels, human design. Just 2? The captain asked, surprised. Our intelligence suggested they would respond with at least 5 ships. Perhaps they didn't take our warning seriously, his second officer suggested. The captain smiled. Then this will be a simple demonstration of Council authority. On the main screen, the human ships came into view. They were smaller than the Council vessels, with sleek lines and unusual configurations that didn't match any known design philosophy. Open communication channels, the captain ordered. Let's inform them of the new regulations. Before the communications officer could comply, the human vessels split apart, moving with a speed and precision that seemed impossible. One moment they were directly ahead, the next they had somehow flanked the Council formation. How did they? the captain began but never finished his question. Both human ships released a cloud of small objects, hundreds of them, spreading out to surround the council vessels. Weapons? The captain asked urgently. Negative, the sensor officer replied, confusion in his voice. They appear to be communication buoys of some kind. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. The main screen flickered, and a human face appeared. It was Admiral Reed, his expression serious but not hostile. Attention, council vessels, Reed said. We understand you've been ordered to establish a blockade. Before you proceed, I want to demonstrate something. The screen split, showing a view of space around the council ships. The small objects the humans had deployed were now forming a complex pattern, creating a network that encircled the blockade. These are communication relays, Reed explained. A new design based on your own technology but modified to operate at higher frequencies. Right now they're transmitting uncensored information to every world within 50 light years. Information about Earth, about our technology, our culture, our ideas. The captain stared in disbelief. You can't do this. The council voted without consulting us, Reed interrupted. That's poor diplomatic practice where I come from. Now, you have two choices. You can destroy these relays and prove to everyone watching that the council fears ideas more than weapons. Or you can return to your territory and suggest to your leaders that perhaps a conversation would be more productive than a blockade. The captain looked to his officers, seeing his own uncertainty reflected in their faces. Their orders hadn't prepared them for this. They were expecting resistance, perhaps even combat, but not this. We will report this to the council, the captain said finally. Reed nodded. We'll be here when they're ready to talk. As the council ships turned and departed, Reed allowed himself a small smile. Not a single shot had been fired, yet the message had been delivered with perfect clarity. Humans would not be contained. On the council homeworld, Grand Counselor Mira was about to learn that the storm she had dismissed so casually was now gathering strength at her very doorstep. On the far edge of known space, the science vessel Curiosity drifted silently. It was a joint mission, humans and scientists from several council races working together despite the official containment policy. Administrator Ben had arranged it, calling in favors from old friends. Dr. Lane stood at the main sensor console, frowning at the readings. That can't be right, she muttered. Trell, the security chief from Trell 9 who had joined the mission as Ben's representative, moved to her side. What have you found? Some kind of gravitational anomaly, Lane replied. It's massive, but it doesn't match any known phenomena. She adjusted the settings, and the main screen filled with a visual representation of empty space. Except it wasn't empty. There was a darkness there, a void deeper than the space around it. It's moving, Trell observed. And fast. Lane nodded, running calculations. At its current speed, it will reach the outer colony worlds in less than a month. Trell's face paled. We need to warn the council. And Earth, Lane added. Whatever this is, it's like nothing I've ever seen. As they prepared an emergency transmission, neither noticed a small detail in the sensor data. The anomaly had changed course slightly, directly toward their position. It had detected them, and it was hungry. Grand Counselor Mira paced her private chambers, anger radiating from her in waves. Before her stood the captain of the failed blockade mission, his head bowed in shame. 3 battle cruisers, Mira said, her voice dangerously quiet. 3 of our finest ships, outmaneuvered by 2 human vessels without a single shot fired. They used tactics we've never seen before, the captain explained. Their ships moved in ways that should be impossible. And these communication relays they deployed, they're still operating? The captain nodded miserably. Our attempts to disable them have failed. They adapt, shifting frequencies faster than we can block them. Mira stopped pacing and stared out the window at the gleaming towers of the council capital. 6 months, she said. That's all it took for them to go from discovering our existence to humiliating our fleet. Perhaps Elder Vox was right. The captain suggested hesitantly. Perhaps we should engage with them diplomatically rather than— No, Mira snapped. I will not bend to this primitive species. Their influence is a disease spreading through our society. It must be contained whatever the cost. The captain shifted uncomfortably. With respect, Grand Counselor, our military options may be limited. Reports from the outer territories suggest the humans have been sharing their technological innovations with several worlds. If those worlds stand with humans, then they stand against the Council, Mira finished coldly. Prepare a full fleet. We will not be embarrassed again. As the captain left, Mira returned to the window. For 1,000 years, the Council had maintained order. She would not be the one to see that order crumble, not because of some upstart species barely out of their own solar system. Her thoughts were interrupted by an urgent chime from her communication console. What is it? She demanded. Emergency transmission from the deep space science vessel Curiosity, her aide's voice replied. They're reporting, Grand Counselor, they claim to have detected the Devourer. Mira froze, her anger forgotten. That's impossible. The Devourer was driven away centuries ago. The transmission was cut off mid-sentence, the aide continued. We've lost all contact with the Curiosity. For the first time in her long career, Mira felt a chill of genuine fear. The Devourer was more than just an enemy. It was a force of nature, a living nightmare that had nearly destroyed all advanced life in the galaxy before the Elders' civilizations had united to drive it back. Verify this information, she ordered. And summon Elder Vox. Admiral Reed stared at the emergency message from the Curiosity. Dr. Lane's voice was calm but urgent as she described the anomaly they had detected. The transmission ended abruptly, with a burst of static. When did this come in? Reed asked. 20 minutes ago, Foster replied. We've tried to re-establish contact, but there's nothing. It's like the ship just vanished. Reed nodded grimly. Lane wouldn't panic over nothing. If she says this anomaly is dangerous, we need to take it seriously. Do we know what it is? Foster asked. Reed hesitated. Maybe. Administrator Ben shared some historical records with me a few months ago. There were stories about something called the Devourer, a semi-organic hive mind that attacked the galaxy centuries ago. The description matches what Lane reported. Foster's eyes widened. If that's true, then we're all in danger, Reed finished. Council and humans alike. He stood up, decision made. Prepare the fleet. All ships, combat ready. The containment policy, Foster began. Doesn't matter anymore. Reed cut him off. If this is the Devourer, we'll need every ship we have, and it still might not be enough. As Foster left to carry out his orders, Reed turned to the star map displayed on his wall. Dots of light represented human outposts and friendly council worlds. If the Devourer was really back, how many of those lights would soon go dark? 1 week later, the frontier world of Vantis fell silent. No distress call, no warning. 5 million inhabitants gone in a single day. The council sent 2 scout ships to investigate. Neither returned. 3 days after that, the mining colony at Proxus suffered the same fate. This time, a single shuttle escaped, carrying terrified survivors who spoke of massive ships that darkened the sky and strange creatures that seemed made of shadow itself. Panic spread through the outer territories. Refugee ships fled toward the Council Core worlds, bringing tales of horror and destruction. The Devourer wasn't just back. It was stronger than before, more ruthless, more efficient. The Council fleet mobilized, but too slowly. Centuries of peace had made them complacent. Their ships were impressive, but designed for ceremony and intimidation rather than actual combat. Their weapons were powerful, but standardized, every ship carrying the same armaments, using the same tactics. The Battle of Trell 9, 50 Council vessels faced 3 of the Devourer's world ships. It was over in hours. Only 12 Council ships escaped to carry news of the defeat. Administrator Ben was among the casualties. His last transmission to Earth contained all the data he had managed to gather about the enemy, information that would prove invaluable in the days to come. Elder Vox stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council. The chamber, usually so orderly, was in chaos. Representatives shouted over each other, demanding action, answers, protection. Grand Counselor Mira, her composure cracked, banged her ceremonial staff for order. Gradually, the noise subsided. "The situation is grave," she admitted, her voice strained. "In 2 weeks, the Devourer has destroyed 7 worlds and defeated our fleet at every encounter. Our analysts project it will reach the core worlds within a month." A representative from the agricultural world of Loria stood. "What is our defense plan? How will you protect us?" Mira hesitated, and in that moment of silence, everyone heard the truth. There was no plan. The Council, for all its power and history, was unprepared for this threat. Elder Vox stepped forward. The chamber fell completely silent now, all eyes on the ancient figure who had warned them of humans months before. "There is only one option," Vox said, his voice carrying effortlessly through the vast room. "We must ask the humans for help." Gasps and protests filled the air. Mira looked as though she had been struck. "The humans?" she demanded. "They are barely spacefaring. What could they possibly do against the Devourer when our own fleet has failed?" "The humans think differently," Vox replied simply. "They see solutions where we see only problems. They adapt where we follow procedures. They innovate where we maintain tradition." "They are chaotic," Mira countered. "Unpredictable, dangerous." "Yes," Vox agreed. "And that is precisely why we need them. The Devourer defeats us because it knows us. It knows how we think, how we fight, how we respond. But it has never encountered humans before." The chamber erupted in debate. Some representatives supported Vox's suggestion, while others rejected it outright. The argument might have continued for hours if not for the arrival of a messenger, who rushed to Mira's side and whispered urgently in her ear. The Grand Counselor's face went pale. She raised her hand for silence, and gradually, the chamber quieted. "We have just received word," she announced, her voice unsteady. "The Devourer has changed course. It is moving faster than predicted, bypassing our outer defenses and—" She paused, seeming almost unable to continue. "A human fleet has engaged the enemy at the Carillion Nebula." "Without our permission?" someone shouted. Mira shook her head. "Without our knowledge. They moved their ships into position days ago, preparing for the Devourer's advance." "What was the outcome?" Vox asked quietly. Mira looked directly at the Elder. "The battle is ongoing, but reports indicate the humans have managed to destroy one of the Devourer's smaller vessels. It is the first victory against the enemy since it returned." Silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. Then, slowly, representatives began to nod, to look at each other with new understanding. Even Mira seemed to accept what had become inevitable. "Open communications with Earth," she commanded. "Tell them." She took a deep breath. "Tell them the Galactic Council requests their assistance in the fight against the Devourer." As the messenger hurried away, Elder Vox watched the assembly with mixed emotions. They had finally recognized the truth about humans, but he feared the realization had come too late. The storm was no longer gathering, it had arrived, and it would take more than words to survive what was coming. Admiral Reed stood in the command center of the Unity, the largest ship in Earth's fleet. Around him, humans worked alongside aliens from a dozen council worlds. 3 weeks had passed since the first battle against the Devourer, and much had changed. "Status report," Reed ordered. Commander Foster, now his chief of operations, looked up from his console. "Our fleet is in position, Admiral. The Council ships have formed a defensive line around the core worlds as planned." Reed nodded, and turned to his new advisor, Elder Vox, who had insisted on joining the human fleet despite his age. "How long do we have?" Reed asked. "Hours, perhaps," Vox replied, his ancient eyes focused on the tactical display. "The Devourer never alters its strategy once committed. It will send its world ships directly at the core worlds, trying to overwhelm us with numbers. That's what they're expecting us to expect," Reed said with a grim smile. "Which is why we won't be there." Vox tilted his head. "You still believe this plan will work?" "I believe we have to try," Reed answered. "The frontal defense didn't work at Trell 9 or any of the other battles. We need something the Devourer hasn't seen before." He turned to address the bridge crew. "Everyone knows their role. This isn't just about Earth or the Council. It's about all sentient life in the galaxy. We are the last line of defense." As the crew returned to their preparations, Vox studied the human admiral. "You truly believe you can win, don't you?" Reed's expression was serious. "I believe we can survive. Winning comes later." On the Council homeworld, Grand Counselor Mira walked through the crowded shelter tunnels deep beneath the surface. Around her, civilians from dozens of species huddled together, fear evident in their eyes. Her aide hurried to catch up. "The evacuation continues, Counselor. Another 1,000 ships departed for the safe zones in the last hour." Mira nodded. "And our defense fleet?" "In position alongside the human vessels," the aide reported, "though many of our commanders are confused by Admiral Reed's strategy." "As am I," Mira admitted. "But the humans have earned the right to try their way. Their victory at the Carillion Nebula proved that." They reached a communications station where several Council military officers stood around a holographic display of the approaching Devourer fleet. 5 world ships, one officer noted grimly, each capable of destroying an entire planet. Our analysts predict they will reach us within 3 hours. Mira studied the display. "And the human plan?" The officer hesitated. "They've positioned their ships oddly. Small groups scattered throughout the system rather than a concentrated defense force. Some appear to be completely out of position." "There must be a reason," Mira said, though doubt clouded her voice. "There is," came a voice behind her. Mira turned to see a young Volari named Trin, one of the many who had embraced human culture before the Council's containment policy. "Explain," Mira demanded. Trin stepped forward, nervous but determined. "The humans don't fight like we do. They don't use standardized formations or follow predictable patterns. Each of their ship groups will act independently, adapting to the situation as it unfolds. Chaos is not a strategy," one of the officers objected. "To us, perhaps," Trin replied. "But to humans, adaptation is survival. They embrace chaos because it creates opportunities." Mira looked at the young Volari with new interest. "You've studied them." Trin nodded. "Their stories, their history. Humans have fought countless wars among themselves. They've learned that the unexpected is their greatest weapon." For the first time in weeks, Mira felt a flicker of hope. She turned back to the display, watching as the human vessels continued their seemingly random movements. "Then let us hope," she said quietly, "that the unexpected is enough." Aboard the small strike vessel Defiance, Dr. Lane checked her equipment one last time. Around her, a team of human and alien scientists made similar preparations. "Are you sure about this?" asked Leah, Administrator Ben's former assistant who had volunteered for the mission to honor his memory. Lane nodded. "The data Ben sent before Trell 9 fell was clear. The Devourer isn't just a military force, it's a hive mind. Every ship, every creature is connected to a central consciousness. And you believe we can disrupt that connection?" "That's what we're going to find out," Lane replied. "Our analysis suggests the Devourer communicates using quantum entanglement, instantaneous signals that can't be blocked or intercepted. But they can be confused," added Professor Krell, a council physicist, who had been working with Lane. The ship's captain called over the intercom. 2 minutes to insertion. All personnel secure for high-speed maneuvers." Lane took her seat and strapped in. The mission was dangerous, perhaps suicidal, but if they succeeded, they might give the fleet the edge it needed. "For Ben," Leah said quietly. Lane reached over and squeezed her hand. "For everyone." The battle began suddenly and violently. The Devourer world ships emerged from hyperspace near the Council homeworld, exactly as predicted. What they found waiting for them, however, was not what they expected. Instead of a defensive line of Council vessels, they encountered only empty space. The trap was sprung a moment later as human ships appeared from behind moons and asteroids, attacking from all directions at once. Each human battle group used different tactics, different weapons. Some fired conventional torpedoes. Others deployed new devices that disrupted the Devourer's sensor systems. A few simply rammed smaller enemy vessels, sacrificing themselves to create gaps in the Devourer's defenses. The Council fleet, which had been hiding in the shadow of the planet's largest moon, joined the attack as the Devourer forces began to scatter in confusion. Aboard the Unity, Reed watched the battle unfold. "Status of Operation Needle?" he asked. "The Defiance has reached the primary world ship," Foster reported. "They're initiating Phase 2 now." Reed nodded. "And our losses?" Foster's expression was grim. "Heavy. We've lost 37 ships already." "It'll be worth it if Dr. Lane succeeds," Reed said, though the weight of those losses showed on his face. Elder Vox stood beside him, watching the tactical display with amazement. "I have never seen such a battle strategy," he admitted. "Your ships move like they have minds of their own." "That's because they do," Reed explained. "Each captain has full authority to adapt and improvise. We gave them the objective, not step-by-step instructions." Vox nodded slowly. "Freedom within structure, chaos with purpose. That's humanity in a nutshell," Reed said with a small smile. The smile faded as alarms blared across the bridge. "The primary world ship is changing course," Foster announced. "It's heading directly for us." "They've identified our command vessel," Reed realized. "All power to shields. Prepare for impact." Inside the massive primary world ship, the Defiance crew fought their way through strange organic corridors. The interior was like nothing they had ever seen, half machine, half living tissue, pulsing with eerie light. "This way," Lane directed, following the readings on her device. "The central node should be just ahead." They entered a vast chamber filled with what looked like glowing brain tissue suspended in liquid. Tentacle-like cables connected it to the ship's systems. "The hive mind," Professor Krell whispered in awe. "The central consciousness of the entire Devourer force." Lane didn't waste time. "Set up the disruptors. We have 3 minutes before they find us." The team worked quickly, placing small devices around the chamber. These weren't weapons in the traditional sense. They were quantum oscillators designed to interfere with the Devourer's communication network. 30 seconds, Leah warned, watching the entrance. Lane made a final adjustment. "Ready. Everyone back to the ship." As they ran, Lane activated the devices remotely. Behind them, the brain-like structure began to pulse erratically, its glow flickering. Across the battlefield, the effect was immediate and dramatic. Devourer ships suddenly lost coordination, some stopping completely while others began firing at their own allies. "It's working," Foster exclaimed. "The enemy fleet is in disarray." Reed didn't hesitate. "All ships, press the attack. Target the secondary world ships first." The battle turned quickly. Without their unified consciousness, the Devourer forces could not adapt to the humans' chaotic tactics. One by one, the world ships fell to the combined might of Earth and Council vessels. The primary world ship, however, began to recover. Its systems were more resilient, able to function independently when needed. "The Defiance?" Reed asked. Foster shook his head. "No communication. They may not have made it out." Reed's jaw tightened. "Then we finish this ourselves. Prepare for direct assault on the primary target." "Admiral," Vox cautioned, "even damaged, that vessel could destroy half our remaining fleet." "I know," Reed replied. "But if we don't end this now, the Devourer will adapt again. It's learning from us with every encounter." The Unity led the charge, accompanied by the remaining human ships and those Council vessels brave enough to follow. They struck the wounded world ship from multiple angles, targeting the weak points identified in Ben's final transmission. For a moment, it seemed the assault would fail. The world ship's defenses held, and it began to power up what appeared to be a main weapon. Then suddenly a series of explosions erupted from within the massive vessel. The Defiance had completed its mission, destroying the hive mind from the inside. They did it, Foster said in disbelief. The primary world ship began to break apart, its destruction triggering a chain reaction among the smaller Devourer vessels still connected to it. Within minutes, the enemy fleet was in full retreat, fleeing, back toward the darkness between galaxies. 3 days later, a new gathering took place in the council chamber. This one was smaller, more solemn. Many seats remained empty, their representatives lost in the defense of their worlds. Grand Counselor Mira stood before the assembly, her usual confidence tempered by recent events. "The Devourer has been driven back," she announced. "Thanks to the combined efforts of Council forces and our human allies, the threat has been contained." She paused, looking to where Admiral Reed stood with Elder Vox. "But the cost was high," she continued. "Billions lost, worlds destroyed, and we have learned a harsh lesson about the nature of our existence in this galaxy." Reed stepped forward at Mira's gesture. "The Devourer is wounded, but not destroyed," he told the assembly. "It will return, perhaps in decades, perhaps in centuries. We must be ready when it does." "And how do you propose we prepare?" asked one of the council representatives. "Together," Reed replied simply. "Humans and council races, sharing knowledge, technology, and perspectives. Our differences are our strength. Your stability and our adaptability, your patience and our urgency." Mira nodded. "The Council proposes a new galactic charter, one that includes Earth as a full member world, with special advisory status on matters of defense and security." The vote was unanimous. As the session ended, Elder Vox approached Reed. "You have achieved what I thought impossible," Vox said. "You have changed the Council." Reed shook his head. "The Devourer changed the Council. We just showed them another way forward." "The paradox of humans," Vox mused, "is not that you are dangerous, though you certainly are, but that your danger is precisely what makes you our greatest allies. You imagine the worst so you can prevent it. You prepare for threats we cannot even conceive." Reed smiled. "That's our nature. We hope for the best. But prepare for the worst," Vox finished. "A wise approach in an uncertain universe." As they looked out at the stars through the chamber's great window, both knew that the galaxy had changed forever. The Council had finally listened, though it had almost been too late, and humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors or subjects, but as guardians against the darkness that lurked between the light.